Welcome to today's episode where we dive into the political theater and imagery that shapes our current landscape. The recent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump has, unsurprisingly, become a galvanizing moment for his fervent fan base. Notice I say fan base and not the Republican Party. The zealous MAGA crowd envisions Trump as he envisions himself, almost as if a 50-year career in the pop culture spotlight has inducted a group hypnosis on millions. Image has always been central to Trump's persona, evolving from a billionaire playboy to a no-nonsense reality TV boss, and now to his final form as an anti-elite warrior for the working class. From the 1980s and 90s as a gregarious hotel magnate to his stint as a pro wrestling Hall of Famer and television character, Trump's presence on The Apprentice aired on NBC for 13 years before he transitioned from Hollywood to the White House. One thing has remained constant: Trump has always stayed in character, often to his professional detriment. His latest persona as a defiant Washington outsider was immortalized this past week with an iconic image, a fist raised in the air shouting "fight" to his supporters. This moment wasn't deep faked or photoshopped. It was a genuine snapshot, emblematic of our current epoch. Images tell the story, and we fill in the blanks with our imaginations or lived experiences, whatever helps us sleep at night. In contrast, Joe Biden continues to be scrutinized publicly for signs of cognitive decline. Both men represent the oldest presidential race to date, yet Biden has garnered bipartisan media attention for his often stammering speeches, raising questions about his candidacy. This scenario is reminiscent of another television president, Ronald Reagan, who also stumbled during debates and forgot critical issues like the Iran-Contra affair, yet won his second term by a landslide. Why don't we remember Reagan as the same doddering old man that we see in Biden? Does any of this matter when electoral politics often resemble team sports, where loyalty to the team trumps individual performance? Will Donald Trump be able to leverage this assassination attempt into a second presidential victory, or is this simply another marketing opportunity for a shallow huckster who sees everything, even an attempt on his life, as a money-making venture? Let's turn to the crew and hear their thoughts on these pressing questions. I will start with Pascal Robert, my co-host. You're in Florida, DeSantis country. I'm sure your news stations and scuttlebutt around town were filled with people talking about far left politics and the assassination attempt. What did you think when you saw this nonsense?
I mean, I'm going to tell you, when I first saw the imagery, I was like, "Whoa, this is kind of extreme. How did the shooter, get away with, five shots, placing himself at such a high vault with what would seem to be somewhat Secret Service error?"
Mhm.
So I didn't want to jump directly to conspiracy theory, but I saw so many people, particularly some folks on the left, who were like, "Oh, this was staged." I think Amber Seals literally said it was staged, and I was like, "We don't know if it was staged. There's no evidence of that." Don't forget, the shooter actually killed a fireman who was there as well.
Yeah, I saw
So,
that. Have
so
people? I try to ignore the coverage as much as possible. I was just recently in the Bay Area to see my family, and I stayed in a hotel for a change. And it was a TV, and I'm not trying to be funny. Every channel was Trump, from the local news through the cable news, even some of the sports. It was just Trump, 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 Trump. So I would just change it, and then I fell on the History Channel, which is no longer history, but just stories of rugged individualism. Nat Geo isn't much different, but is anybody talking about the innocent person that got killed in this?
not many. I mean, everyone is talking about what seems to be how this is going to be politically calculated by the Trump administration or the Trump campaign to their advantage. Many people are saying he's up in all of the swing states, that this is a lock for him. I mean, people are making ultimate prognostications that Biden cannot recover. I know Biden suspended his campaigning, his counter campaigning against Trump for a while in order to make peace. Uh, it's I can tell you that the first images I saw the image where Trump was fist in the air, flag waving in the back, saying "fight, fight, fight." That looked convincing. It looked strong, and I think that for people who are not normally suspicious about what they consume on media, they will be strongly swayed by this notion of a fighter, hero, martyr president that can't be stopped by a bullet.
Kuba, what did you see?
I I saw much the same. The first I heard about the news from friends of mine. Then when I went to see what happened, um, the it was a whole different series of pictures. Of course, it's a major political event. You're going to have photojournalists from all kinds of outlets taking dozens of pictures continually of the candidate, and you could see the sympathy, the attitude towards Donald Trump based on which photographs they chose to run on different websites. And there are a few that make Trump look pretty heroic. And the reality is that, to go back to your intro, we have a very polarized electorate. Most states, most votes simply don't matter because you've got huge swaths of the country that are more or less unswayable. They can already be um, counted in one column or the other, and comes down to a few thousand voters in maybe a dozen or so swing states. And
Yeah.
those voters are not going to be a brain trust of carefully considered political graybeards looking at all of the pros and cons and weighing the elements of the different political platforms. They're going to be people who are marginally attached to politics and who vote based on sentiment, based on vibes. And these are bad vibes for the Democrats and good vibes for the Republicans, especially since Trump has managed to um, maintain a relatively responsible and, dare I say, statesman-like tone to at least his own comments after the assassination. Granted, there's the whole "God save me" megalomania, but most people disregard that, and the ones who will fixate on it are actually more likely to be Christian types that see it as a agree with him as to the prospect that Providence intervened for his sake. I If this had been an election in which Biden had a slight edge, it would be bad enough. But ever since, even before the debate,
Hmm.
Trump had a advantage in the polling, especially in key swing states. That has only increased since the debate. We don't have any new information following the assassination attempts, no new numbers, but between the assassination attempts and the ongoing Republican National Convention, which seems to be rolling out good order, good messaging. Uh, he had the president of the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, delivering a very strong class war, anti elite, anti big corporation, pro American worker speech, one which stopped short of endorsing Trump or the Republicans. Honestly, that's a classy move. Open up the stage to somebody who typically is associated with the other side and let them speak freely in ways that criticize some of your own constituents, elements of your own coalition, say their piece and without needing to capitulate. Similarly, there was that um, celebrity, the lady with the face tattoo, who represented a different kind of outreach, right? Trump has, I've been reading the programs put out by various Republican affiliated organizations, Project 2025's leadership vision, and as well as, which is insanely long and horribly boring, and then the 16-page Republican national platform, which is basically a greatest hits of Trump's latest tweets. Punchy, easy to read, you know, strong recommend. 100% on Goodreads, and the it's very telling what the differences are between the two documents. The Heritage Foundation is obviously coming from the traditional base and the traditional coalition of free market types, the neocons, the transatlanticists, the cosmopolitan set of the neocons are gone, but there's a very, very strong military industrial element, very powerful anti-immigration, nativist sentiment, and just a huge influence, a very obvious influence of social conservatives and Christian fundamentalists. What's interesting about both the platform in the Republican Party platform and the convention so far is that certain groups that have traditionally been right at the center of the Republican coalition have been de-emphasized, and in fact, their priorities are just gone, are invisible, or sometimes just limited to a single paragraph, 1 or 2 bullet points, treated very abstractly, very superficially, while suggesting that at least for electoral reasons, and we'll see how this takes after November, but Trump is interested in winning to the point where he's not talking about any of the Christian stuff. He's not bragging about ending Roe versus Wade or any of that. He's attempting to de-emphasize it as much as possible.
I was going to ask you that, Kuba and Pascal and Toussaint. Do you guys feel like this time around, I was actually having a conversation with someone earlier today. Do you think this time around he's attempting to be quote unquote more presidential in the sense of even with his physical appearance, kind of toning down the buffoonishness?
I think he's actually taking the advice of people who told him that he should use the moment of the assassination to be a unifier to actually try to come off as a unifier.
I think that this campaign as well, remember, he went into 2016 in the same way that he went into previous long shot presidential campaigns. Make a few inflammatory statements, expect to drop out before the primaries, get a new season of The Apprentice, right? Just use it as another marketing
negotiating tool. Yeah,
precisely. That's been his strategy. There's no indication that he expected or even wanted the presidency. And this time, it matters to him that he win, because from a personal standpoint, there's all of the psychology that goes along with being a loser, refusing to be remembered as being a loser, the sense of grievance that comes from the notion that he actually did win, but the election was stolen. He may believe that, or at least partially believe that. What's certainly true is that people lied about him. There were a bunch of dirty tricks on both sides of the U.S. presidential election. These things aren't politics ain't beanbag, as they say. And furthermore, now, ever since he lost the presidency, he has been the subject of lawfare, lawsuits at different levels, attempts to discredit him, attempts to 34 felony convictions, and that's just one set of lawsuits. and now somebody's shot at him. So it's a matter of survival. He has enemies that would like to put him out to pasture to neutralize him permanently. Um, I'm not suggesting that the same people are responsible for both the assassination attempt and the lawfare, but it's clear to him that unless he wins, there's real risks to his livelihood, his family, his person, and to secure himself, it's worth disciplining some of his more colorful instincts and adopting a tone that can get him what he wants in the medium term.